give you guys a view of what some of the features we've added. So, first feature is consensus mock draft. We've done every consensus mock draft from 2026 to 1981. I am currently working on older ones. They're not as plentiful, but the idea is just to try to put something together that hasn't been done before. Again, I know people don't like mock drafts, and that's really not. This is educational, strictly educational, and it really is a tool for people to use, some entertainment level. But I really think, and I talked about this at great lengths, mock drafts are really a educational, historical tool for researchers like myself and others out there to try to get a view of what the prospects' views were at the time. Because everybody's going to play Monday night quarterback. Everybody's going to say, oh, I knew this guy was going to be that great. Everybody had this guy that great. And everybody's got, 20/20 vision when everything's said and done. But the consensus mock drafts really tell us what people really felt at the time. So, in each given year, I've tried to, add in some really, I think, reputable places that kind of had their finger on the pulse of what was going on at the time. So, in any mock draft you pull up, this is the famous 2023 draft. So, I did 15. So, 15 mocks I put out and cataloged. In each mock, you can go in and you can see the consensus. Here's the consensus. So LeBron James was consensus number 1. Darko Milicic was consensus 2. Carmelo Anthony was consensus 3. There's no real, I think most people know that. Now, where it gets interesting is occasionally, you have some funny things that happen because so much of this that was going on, you kind of get a consensus band here, which kind of tells you around where people were kind of slotted at depending on the mock that you had. So, for example, I think this is very interesting. Maciek Lampy, who everybody know, kind of fell in the draft. He was consensusly looked at as being a top 10 pick, 7th in the consensus board, and he fell into the second round. I think 31st he went to New York. Now, you might be asking yourself, what's with the 7A, 7B, and 7C? Well, very simply, if you click on details here, you will see that each detail gives you what mocks they came from. So here, and I put some guys in there that, maybe some people don't like, but to me, they have a place with draftniks like myself. So one of them was the Usenet draft, who, I was a big fan of. Chad Ford, Sam Smith, USA Today, NBA Draft.net. I felt that that was, CBS. The Los Angeles Times and Mark Heisler, he used to put out, great mocks. Peter May at the Boston Globe. Rick Bonnell of the Charlotte Observer. Really good guys that had a good pulse of the game. Scott Howard Cooper. Each guy you hit, you'll see the consensus. Now, a 7A, 7B, what that really tells you most of the time is if you count up the people that TJ Ford was a higher pick with consensusly, and then he had the most sources that were consensusly putting him in that band. So that's the reason for the 7A, 7B, 7C. And as you click on the next 7C guy, again, a lot of sources, but some of them were parsed out a little bit less. You see like here, Sports Illustrated dropped him at 17 here, Peter May 15, NBA Draft.net 11. If you look here for TJ Ford, there's not a single solitary mock. One, which was Sam Smith of the Chicago Tribune, that doesn't have TJ Ford out of the top 10. So, hence 7A, 7B, and then 7C. Now, another feature that I tried to put in to give you guys some more things to play with is this tab right here. It gives you consensus pick, actual pick, biggest slide, biggest reach. So, if we look here, who's the biggest slide of the mocks in 2003? Biggest slide was Troy Bell. Consensusly, he was 23rd. He went much higher than that. I believe he went 16, if memory serves me correct. 16. So, that right there lets you know that in terms of the mocks, he slid pretty far because consensusly he was ranked a lot higher than I think most people had him. Again, you could put it back in consensus mode. Go to biggest reach here. Biggest reach was without a doubt Pavel Podkolzin. He, as many people know, actually declared for the draft, but then pulled himself out of the draft. So unfortunately, Usenet Draft, which does their draft a little earlier than the typical time, they did have Pavel Podkolzin. I believe they had him. They had him fourth to Toronto. So obviously, I know that's a technicality, but I wasn't going to try to change anything just for the sake of keeping things pure. Jason Keep, Maurice Williams, Rick Rickert from Minnesota. These are all guys that, if you look, they dropped. Mark Heisler had Jason Keep going 24. Jason Keep did not get picked at all. So he fell 35 slots from where he was consensusly supposed to be. So really, I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with the consensus is, again, give you guys things to play with. Biggest reach, again, like I said, the biggest reach is a little different than maybe how people interpret reach. But really, like I said, I was trying to give you guys just an idea of what a slide is. Same thing, with David West. Consensusly, he was 21. He dropped a little bit in the draft. So he went actually higher than what many consensusly had him at. So that's what we call a slide in some occasions. So again, here's the funny thing. We can actually go all the way back so far right now to 1981. So we just did 2003, one of the best drafts of all time. Let's go 1984 because that is routinely one of the best drafts of all time. 1984. Interesting again. You're going to see some interesting data here. So consensusly, it was Hakeem, it was Sam Bowie, and it was Michael Jordan. So again, all the Sam Bowie conversations, it's always interesting, right? You say to yourself, man, how could they pick Michael Jordan? How could they not pick Michael Jordan? I mean, it had to be Sam Bowie. Well, if you look right here, everybody pretty much thought Sam Bowie was going to be number 2. As a matter of fact, out of the 15 mocks that we picked up for 1984, Sam Bowie was not listed anywhere but the second pick. As far as Hakeem Olajuwon, or as he was called in 84, Hakeem Abdul-Olajuwon, he was a consensus number 1 pick. And then, interesting enough, to everybody, the man that would become one of the GOATs of the game was pegged pretty solidly at 3 amongst all the guys. Now, some of the most interesting things that kind of happen here as you go down farther, you start to see guys that you didn't see for quite some time. So one of the guys is Devin Durant. He actually was in the green room for the draft. Did not go in the first round as many people indicated. He actually went in the second round. There was another gentleman. Let me find him. Ben Coleman, another guy who people had going pretty early. He actually went 20 picks later in the draft. John Stockton was, again, people love to talk about John Stockton being, a small school kid that Utah Jazz took a chance on. But as you see right here, he was not. Now, this is interesting. He was not consensusly looked at. Of the 15 mocks that we pulled, he only was on 5 of them. So he was not a sleeper per se, but he was not consensusly looked at as a first-round pick when you look at the 15 mocks that were out there at the time. Interestingly enough, again, some really weird data here. So you have Matt Daugherty was looked at as a first-round pick. He goes much later. Curtis Green, he goes much later. Rick Ross, he goes much later. So without a doubt, the one that drops the most amongst all these is Jim Master right here. Jim Master becomes a 6th-round pick, but maybe there's some favoritism there or something like that. I don't know, but he did not go. He was only in 1 mock. But interestingly enough, the Daily Breeze was a West Coast was a West Coast mock, so it wasn't like he was, on a mock that was like within Kentucky. It was actually on the West Coast when this mock was done. So, interestingly enough, he was looked at as a first-round pick, did not go until, like I said, the 6th round. So that's really it. Like I said, I will add more years as it goes on, but as of right now, that's kind of where we're at. Now, let me go to, so if you go to Sundry here, and you go to McDonald's All-American there, it's going to pull up the McDonald's All-American teams that we did. Now, so you might be saying to yourself, okay, cool, but what am I getting here? So again, we're going to go all the way to the beginning of the game. So in 1977, there was no game played. There was only the teams that were announced, and as you see here, the teams were announced on March 11th, 1977. And what we did is we went through and we actually got statistics for every single high school season for every player. There's only, I think, three guys that we couldn't get. And believe it or not, some of those guys we couldn't get are modern players. It's kind of crazy, but yes, it happens. So Magic Johnson here averaging for Everett 28, 17, and 8. Amazing numbers there. Wayne McCoy was a big-time recruit for St. John's, 30, 18, and 5. So again, like I said, you can quote, like even Tom Freeman. No one knows who Tom Freeman is, but at the time he was considered one of the best players. Again, you click on Tom Freeman. We have done the research. Played at Kansas State, left, went to Idaho State, and then played one season there. And we that's where the case goes cold. We never saw him again anywhere. So don't know what happened with that. So in terms of, again, what we can go to, one of my favorite McDonald's All-American teams is probably going to be 92, because 92, man, you want to talk about a loaded class here. Is this 92? Yes, 92. No. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the Fab Five. I'm messing up here. So I think the Fab Five was 91. Man, I'm messing up to 91. So right here you have the Fab Five. You have Jawan, you have Jimmy King, you have Jalen Rose, you have Glenn Robinson, you have Chris Webber. Again, just the numbers are just amazing. And like I said, a lot of legends some of you guys haven't heard of before. Again, we give you what we can give you. For example, Howard Nathan here was featured in Hoop Dreams, unfortunately passed away. But at his time and his peak, he was considered one of the better recruits in the nation. Unfortunately, had a little bit of a troubled career and didn't really finish college. But I mean, we tracked them again. We try to give all these guys their honor and respect for being what they were as McDonald's All-Americans. Now, here's the other interesting thing that we try to do. We try to give you the date, location, city, MVPs, which was Rick Brunson. Shout out to Jalen Brunson and Chris Webber. Now, if you hit this box score here, you get a PDF. Oh, man. You get a PDF here. Sorry, working on this whiteboard here. It gets a little weird. So, a little bit different. You'll see it a little different on the computer here. I'm on a whiteboard. So, we tried to give the actual full box scores for every single game. So, minutes, field goals, free throws, rebounds, assists, total points. We tried to give it all. As with anything, it's not perfect at all. There are some years where we don't have great data. I'd say it's probably the earlier years. Things get kind of lost. Like I want to say 81, and a couple other years after that. 81 is pretty different here. So 81, not as bad, but not great. A little bit less detail. We got rebounds, assists, points, free throws, field goals. Now there is a 1 year or two where all I have is field goals, free throws, and points. It's not a perfect science, but it was really hard to recover some of these numbers just because there is an age. You are dealing with age. Age does play a part in this. It's not like some of this stuff is out there. If there was a situation where a guy didn't play, I do kind of give you that detail. Again, it's not. This isn't a perfect thing here, but I think for what it does, I think it gives you a really good idea of the McDonald's All-American game and gives you a really good idea of the players that played in it. Now, I think, yeah. So that's pretty much it. We're still working on some of the earlier Portsmouth pre-draft camps. Still looking for some of the Chicago stuff. Again, it's always constant work in progress. We do not have everything we need, but we are trying to work to get everything we need, if that makes sense. If you guys have any other questions or suggestions, yeah, please holler at me, man. Let me know. I appreciate you guys supporting my work. It means the world to me. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.